Ever find yourself tapping your foot to music, even if you don't think you have rhythm?
Yeah, everyone's got that innate sense of rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. And today, we're going to unpack that, diving deep into how it all works. You've been curious about rhythm, so we're taking a look at Limatura.
Limatura.
Yeah, it's this system created by a Brazilian musician named Jack Lima. And let me tell you, it kind of blew my mind.
Okay, color me intrigued. What's so special about Limatura?
Well, it all starts with this. Traditional musical notation, the way we write music down, it has its limitations.
Yeah, I can see that. Especially for music that's big on feeling the groove. Like, how do you capture that on paper?
Exactly. It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It kind of works, but not perfectly, and for certain styles, it just doesn't cut it.
Right. Like, take samba music, for example. That infectious energy, the way it gets you moving, those rhythms are super complex.
And it's not just somber.
I'm absolutely not. Reggae, Afro-Cuban music, even some modern genres, traditional notation, struggles to represent those rhythmic complexities accurately.
And that's where Jack Lima comes in.
So what did he do, this Jack Lima?
Well, get this. Even as a kid, he was obsessed with rhythm. I'm talking meticulously cataloging every musical style he could get his hands on.
Wow, talk about dedication.
Right. But here's the thing. He wasn't just listening, he was analyzing, trying to crack the code of what made these rhythms tick. And that's when he realized that traditional notation, while useful, was actually holding musicians back.
Holding them back how?
It wasn't allowing them to fully grasp, to truly express the full potential of rhythm. It's like, those optical illusions where you can't see the hidden image until someone points it out?
Yeah, and then you're like, how did I miss that?
Exactly. Except in this case, it's about hearing, feeling the rhythm. And the funny thing is, the solution Lima came up with is actually quite simple.
Okay, you've got to tell me more.
Yeah.
What's this solution, this Limatura?
Well, in a nutshell, it all starts with the number 8.
8.
8. I know, it sounds kind of random, right? But stick with me, it'll make sense.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So traditional notation, it's like having this measuring cup, right? But it only has markings for a quarter cup.
Okay, I get that.
You can measure things out, sure, but what if you need something more precise?
Like an eighth of a cup.
Exactly, and that's what traditional notation is missing, that finer level of detail, especially when you're dealing with complex rhythms, like those syncopations, the polyrhythms, all that good stuff.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going. So Limatura, with its base 8, it's like having that O-cup measurement.
You got it. It gives you that extra level of rhythmic detail, and suddenly it's like the whole world of rhythm just opens up.
So how does this actually work in practice? Let's go back to that samba example.
Right.
How would you write that out in Limatura?
Okay, so picture that classic samba groove, the one you hear on the surdo drum. It's a 2-bar phrase, right, with 3 really strong beats.
Gotcha.
In traditional notation, it's a mess. You're trying to cram it into 4/4 time, using ties and rests, and it never quite sits right.
And it loses that natural flow, that feel of the rhythm.
Exactly. But with Limatura, we can actually represent those 2 bars as 4/8. So we're acknowledging those 8 underlying pulses across the 2 bars, and then we just mark the 3 strong beats within that framework.
So it's clear, it's concise, it actually reflects how the rhythm feels when you play it.
Precisely. And here's the best part. Limatura isn't just limited to samba, or any one genre for that matter.
Really?
Yeah, because that base 8 system, it's like a universal language for rhythm. It gives you a framework to understand these complex rhythmic relationships across a whole bunch of different musical traditions.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, we're talking about West African drumming, we're talking about Indian classical music, even your favorite pop songs.
It's all connected. But it's more than just theory, right? What's the practical application for musicians? How does this actually change the way you play? So we're not just talking about a different way of writing down music. We're talking about feeling it differently.
Exactly. It's about internalizing those rhythms, understanding them on a deeper level.
So give me a real-world example. How does this actually change the way someone plays?
Okay, imagine a jazz musician improvising a solo, right? With a strong foundation in Limatura, they're not just thinking about scales and chords. They're thinking about rhythmic possibilities within each measure, within the entire form of the song.
So it's like Limatura gives them a roadmap, helps them navigate all those rhythmic twists and turns.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just improvisation either. Think about sight reading, when you're tackling a new piece for the first time.
Yeah, that can be daunting, all those notes on the page.
Right. But with Limatura notation, because those rhythms are so clearly represented, it's easier to internalize them, to execute them accurately, with confidence.
It's like you're removing the obstacles, letting the music flow through. And we were talking earlier about how Lima sees this as more than just a rhythm system. He sees it as a whole new approach to music education.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really interesting. He actually develops software that he believes can teach people to read notes and chords in a week.
Wait, really? In a week?
That's what he claims. And not just basic reading, but actual understanding, like fluency in the language of music.
That's a bold claim. For those of us who've struggled through years of traditional music lessons, it sounds almost too good to be true.
I know, right? But his approach is all about making music intuitive. Instead of getting bogged down in theory, he wants students to dive right in, to play, to experiment.
So it's more about developing your ear, your instincts, alongside the theoretical stuff?
Exactly. He believes everyone has that innate musicality, and Limatura is just a tool to unlock it.
I love it. It's a really inspiring vision, and it sounds like Limatura is gaining some traction, at least in Brazil.
It is. But like any new system, it takes time. It's about changing the way people think about music.
It's like discovering a hidden room in a house you thought you knew, right? Suddenly there's all this new space, all these possibilities.
I like that analogy. And for our listeners who've been on this deep dive with us today, exploring the ins and outs of Limatura, I think the takeaway is this. Don't be afraid to explore new ideas, to challenge the way you think about music.
Because you never know, you might just unlock a whole new level of musicality within yourself.
Exactly.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. Happy listening, and as always, happy rhythming.